Welcome back, everyone. This is Paradigm Blue. I wanted to talk really quickly about our game, Alphabet Command, or Allied Command, either way you want to say it, pitting myself and Evoken playing co-op versus the Japanese player Guctony. In this game, of course, I command the Australian, British, Canadian, Dutch, French, Commonwealth, New Zealand forces, while Evoken commands the United States and China, and the Soviets if it comes to that too. In any case, yesterday was a really momentous turn, and I wanted to talk a little bit about it. Of course, it was the first turn of the game where Guctony made his moves, and he really showed his experience as a Japanese player, doing some really unconventional things that you may not be used to seeing in normal games of War in the Pacific, and some pretty daring ones. Pretty bold moves that Evoken and I are going to be really dealing with for the rest of this game. And, of course, the most significant of all of these was the action at Pearl Harbor. We saw a few things happen last turn. One, he sent a bombardment force to Pearl Harbor to bombard. This is a very effective tactic if you do it right. A lot of players are afraid of the mines and the coastal defense guns, but if you set your bombardment group minimum bombard to a long range, you don't have the problems with the mines and the defense guns that you otherwise might. This bombardment group trashed the airfield here at Pearl Harbor pretty badly, destroyed a lot of planes on the ground. You can see this airfield damage real quick. There we go. And we can probably fly tomorrow, but still a lot of damage. And that allowed him to dedicate all of his carrier strike force to the port. And the port, of course, is a disaster. Just a charnel house. All the United States battleships are in terrible shape, and in the next few days we'll probably lose all the ones that haven't sunk yet. You can see that there's only 5 on this list right now. The other thing that's a little bit different here, of course, is he brought not just 1 carrier task force, but 2 carrier task forces. So our air at Pearl Harbor, even though it is strong, it's not going to be enough to really contest these 2 carrier task forces. Finally, he landed at Kona. He's making a play for the Hawaiian Islands on the very first day. It's a very, very bold move, but I think it's one that's going to pay off for him. Evoken has his carriers over here, but really right now, when they're flying Buffaloes and he only has 4 of them at the moment, they just don't have the striking power to hold up against 1 Japanese carrier task force, let alone 2. If we had the advantage in carriers, if we had an intact airfield, this may be different, right? But right now, we just don't have the striking power to go after these ships. So the one weakness that I see here is in surface task forces. We don't really see a strong surface task force other than the bombardment task force. And the bombardment task force is going to be very, very low on ammo. So that could be a potential weakness here. But in any case, there is a good chance that we're going to lose the Hawaiian Islands in the first month of the war, which will be exceptionally challenging for Evoken. Right now, I feel very fortunate that I'm playing the other allies and not the United States, because he's going to be in a pickle, and we're going to have to see what I can do to help him out. Other things that are a little bit different, let's go to the Philippines here, is where the Philippine landings occurred. For those of you that have played Japan before, you know that typically first day landings are at Bataan Island And then you see some landings at Apari and Layog up here. Now, our opponent Guctony has bypassed a lot of this. He's landed here at Vigan, bypassing Apari and Layog. He took Layog with some paratroopers instead. And then he's done large landings here at Iba, which is of course going to be able to very, very quickly get to Clark Field and get to Manila before they have a chance to build up at all. He has brought carrier support for this, though not as many carriers, of course, that he dedicated to the Hawaiian Islands. So the Philippines are going to be in a lot of trouble. We have all these units here. We're going to have a hard time getting back in time. He bombarded Cebu, which is very smart, doing huge damage to the runway, to the airfield, and destroyed a lot of planes on the ground. So that's important because Cebu has some good USN fighters and dive bombers and torpedo bombers. And if left unattended, it can kind of be a threat to Japanese shipping in the area. But this bombardment really kind of took care of that. You also see this task force here. This is actually a carrier task force. We know that because, unfortunately, the Boise got caught by the carrier task force headed to Babel Daub on the first turn, sinking the Boise. So, carriers up here, carriers down here, surface task force in the middle. One thing that we haven't seen yet first turn is a lot of times we'll see a lot of surface task forces in the Celebi Sea, that's sortie from Babel Daub, but we haven't seen those quite yet, and we do have good naval search here, so there's a good chance that he's not going to be quite as aggressive in destroying all the ships fleeing from the Philippines. We'll see. What you also may notice here as we head over to Malaya and things that are different is there's no landing forces at Singapore, at Patani, at Kota Baru. Instead, he lands 50,000 troops at Kuantan to bypass us here, and cut off these troops. Also, I think to build a quick airbase. I think once he takes us, he'll have an airbase here that will allow him to hit Mare Singh, and this airbase here can support his Mare Singh invasion. Also, to that end, he's landed at Groot Natona, and that's going to be a airbase for him, I'm sure, that can help cover this entire area. If he lands a air headquarters here and puts torpedoes on it, any ship I have in this area, it's going to be in for a very, very rough time. So yeah, some unconventional moves here, some kind of scary moves for us as the allies. And that's what we're going to deal with first turn. Now there are some opportunities here that I'm going to try to take advantage of playing as my allied forces. This invasion task force right here at Iba, very, very well protected. This one here at Vigan, a little bit less so. We may be able to take advantage of that. Landing force here at Groot Natona, also not really well protected. He may be flying some really long-range cap over it, but I don't see a lot of air power dedicated to this, so that could be an opportunity. And finally, landing at Kuantan, which is only 5 hexes away from Singapore, because he has his carriers in other places, and he may have some CVEs here, but I'm not seeing any fleet carriers, and I'm sure he's running long-range cap over the hex, but still, I believe that these landing forces could be a little bit vulnerable to an airstrike. So those are the kind of things that we're looking at as we look to the next turn. One thing that I didn't go over in my video, of course, was losses. Let's take a look here. 372 planes down the first turn, 210 of those allies, 137 of them Japanese. You can see all the ground losses here. We lose lots of Mohawks, Warhawks, Catalinas, B-18s, and just a long list of other aircraft that I have to scroll down to see them all. Good news for us is he does lose 47 zeros. He does have very large zero pools to start the game. He also has very large zero production to start the game. He's producing 15 zeros a turn from the get-go, but this did eat into his pools a little bit. So our goal moving forward is going to be trying to down at least 15 zeros a day. As his production ramps up, we're going to have to increase that number even more to hurt his zero pools. 30 Bettys go down. That's good for us, but again, he has strong pools and good production of the Betty, so it's going to be a while before that stings for him, and there's really a impact. These Kates are going to hurt a little bit more. His Kate production isn't quite as strong. And the Vals as well. His Val production isn't quite as strong. So if we can continue doing some of these, inflicting some of these losses on his strike craft, his Vals, his Kates, and the escorting zeros, that can be good for us. Let's look at ship sunk here. You can see just how devastating this first day was. West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Nevada all go down. The remaining, I think, 5 carriers at Pearl will follow shortly, I have no doubt. Some will burn naturally and throughout the next turn, and go down. There's others that if he breathes on Pearl wrong, they'll be destroyed. Of course, lots of destroyers destroyed near Pearl. Other than that, the ship losses aren't as bad as they could be. These 2 cruisers, of course, hurt a lot. They're great light cruisers. But lots of little low-value ships here as well that we don't have to be quite as worried about. The problem is that now that Pearl is so badly destroyed, a lot of the ships there... Let's head to Pearl. Sorry about that. They're just going to have a real tough time getting out. We have all these cruisers that are badly damaged, a lot of destroyers that are damaged. So the question is, what can we get out of Pearl? Or do we even try to get out of Pearl? Do we try to make a last stand and get in among these invasion task forces? Do we try to spread ships out and flee? I don't know. It's up to Evoken. That's going to be his decision. But next turn is going to be very, very interesting no matter what. And like I said, this action and this landing at Pearl Harbor has really changed the course of the game from day one. And we already know it's going to be a very, very different game of War in the Pacific than one that you might used to be seeing. So there are opportunities here for us, though. Despite these really strong initial invasions, these really strong initial strikes, this aggressiveness, our opponent Guctony has committed a lot to Pearl. Not quite as much to the Dutch East Indies, not quite as much to the Philippines, and so there may be some opportunities there for us, for Evoken and I to take advantage of that and play aggressively in the areas where those carriers aren't. Of course, the entire point of the Kido Butai is that it is very mobile, so we really have a limited window of opportunity to be aggressive before that moves in. We also have to remember that, despite there not being carriers in the area, he does have very, very strong air power. Takao is absolutely massive. I'm not sure if it's going to tell us how many planes there are here. There's a lot. It's a level 9 airfield focused Pacific. Contains hundreds of bombers and fighters. Saigon is built up. Bangkok is built up with hundreds of bombers and fighters. And so we still have to be cautious. We can try to strike back, have some aggressive actions, but we can't just put everything out there and sail ships into the middle of the South China Sea and expect it to go well for us, because it certainly won't. So far, no sweeps over Rangoon or bombing over Rangoon, which was surprising the first day. One thing that he did not do the first day, though he can correct it very quickly, is he did not bombard Qingchaoan. Qingchaoan has a good airfield, a lot of good French planes, and until he bombards it and takes out that airfield, I think I have the opportunity to cause some problems here from Qingchaoan. Has not started moving south to Hong Kong yet, which I find interesting. And as of yet, we don't see any movement here north of the Bismarck Sea, though I'm sure he will be coming for Kaivang and Rabaul eventually. He also didn't make the normal Mackin landing, which is usually landed, I think the first turn is usually when that happens. And we don't see that this turn either. Maybe that'll happen next turn, I don't know. We also don't see any sweeps or bombing of Guam, which is interesting. We do have some good Buffalo squadrons here, and honestly the AV at Guam is pretty good. Let's see if yeah, 91, which isn't great, but if we build up forts here a little bit in the jungle, we're going to be able to hold out, I hope. Not for long, but maybe just cause them a little bit of a headache. Anyway, that's it. I just wanted to kind of give you the overview of where things are, how things are working out, and what we might do against it. I can't really go too detailed into those plans for OPSEC, but expect to see some fireworks over the next couple of weeks. In any case, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you in the Discord. Take care, everyone.